In this video, I'm going to walk you through how long it actually takes to recover from a herniated disc so that you can get back to things like hiking, working out, playing with your kids without pain shooting down your leg. If you are dealing with this, there's a really good chance that you've already seen other videos on YouTube or Instagram showing you things like the 3 best exercises to do to get rid of sciatica fast, or other clickbait type material where they're promising you some quick relief, but it leaves you frustrated in the end because you're not fully recovered from it. So I'm going to share with you the exact timeline that one of my recent clients went on to recover to 100% after having a herniated disc. So when Chris reached out to me, he had pain shooting down his leg and he needed to use a cane to get around his house. Otherwise, it was too uncomfortable and he was too worried that he was going to make it worse. The other thing is he didn't know what exercises that he needed to be doing or the things that he shouldn't be doing so that it doesn't get worse. But his biggest frustration was he couldn't pick up his newborn son without making that pain worse, and this really bothered him because he was unsure if he was going to be able to be an active dad and make memories with his son growing up. The other thing is he already had a previous surgery on a herniated disc a couple of years prior to this happening, and he did not want a second surgery, so he wasted 0 time and got started right away. So within the first week, nothing too crazy happened. There wasn't this magical situation where he just woke up with no pain anymore. That first week, we needed to establish baselines and we needed to explore exercises so we can find his directional preference. Without that, it's really difficult to lay out the full program to recover back to 100% because in the beginning, you really need to understand the things that do make it worse and the things that don't make it worse so that you can do the right things to make it better. So once we figured that out, within the first 3 weeks, his average pain went from like a 7 out of 10 down to a 2 out of 10. The other thing is the pain was no longer going down his leg. It was centralized to just his low back. And at this point, Chris no longer relied on his cane to get around the house. And he was able to do more household tasks, even though they were fairly basic, but he was able to help out around the house and with the newborn so that his wife wasn't left with all the responsibility. But bending and twisting still worsened his symptoms and sent pain down his leg occasionally. For example, he would wake up in the morning and that typically was a common irritant for pain to shoot down his leg, but it went away within a few minutes after he got up moving around. But because of this, he was still kind of worried and apprehensive about doing too much or re-aggravating this or injuring this even further because he wasn't fully out of the woods yet. So over the course of a couple more weeks, around week 7, he had a couple minor setbacks because with the rehab process, we need to increase what you can tolerate so you can do more throughout your life. And with that, you're gonna have minor setbacks. You're gonna have some days where you're feeling a little bit more sore, a little bit more stiff, or the pain is a little bit worse. But that is okay as long as we can manage that going forward. But at this point, around week 6, he was mostly pain-free. He, in fact, felt like he was almost back to 100%. He could pick up his son without pain shooting down his leg, but he couldn't hold on to his son or carry him for too long because then that would start to irritate his back and his back would start to get sore. And so an important reminder with this is the recovery process with these injuries, it's not always a perfect straight line from point A to point B. In fact, it's kind of a crazy jumbled mess where you're gonna have ups and downs. It's not gonna be just this perfect magical situation where each day is better, better, better. And that brings up an important reminder that when you're pain-free, that doesn't automatically mean that you're recovered back to 100% because again, at week 6, Chris felt really good. He felt very close to 100%, but he still was unsure. He still wasn't confident with moving around and exercising because he still had some of those aches and pains depending on how hard he pushed himself. And so I want you to understand that just because you're pain-free does not mean that you're going to be recovered back to 100%, which might be confusing. And so I have this little picture to help demonstrate what I'm trying to say here. So if your goal is only focused on pain, to go from being in pain to being pain-free, that doesn't automatically mean that you're gonna be able to tolerate things like golfing, working out, playing pickleball, hiking, without aggravating your back. So to give you a more realistic picture of what you should be shooting towards is something along the lines of this, where you are working to get out of pain like this, but you need to work on rebuilding your tolerance and your capacity so that you can do any activity or any exercise or any hobby that you want to do without pain stopping you. So if your strategy is only focused on pain relief, typically the long-term outcome is not very good because you're going to be constantly focused on pain. You're going to be constantly worried in the background, in the back of your head, on if you should do these things like exercise or if you should do deadlifts at the gym, because you're going to be worried about re-injuring yourself in the future, because any amount of pain or discomfort is going to freak you out. And yes, reducing pain is important for quality of life, but that shouldn't be the only goal that you're working towards. You need to become resilient to this injury so you're not afraid of it and it doesn't limit your life. When you focus on building resilience, typically you become stronger and you're exercising more, which in return, the more you exercise, the healthier you are overall. You're gonna have better mobility, you're not gonna be so stiff and sore. The other thing is you're gonna have an increased capacity so that you can tolerate more activity throughout your life. And because of this, you're no longer going to avoid activity or avoid exercises, and you're not gonna be afraid of some discomfort here and there because you're no longer going to be worried about re-injuring yourself. The reason you aren't going to be worried about that is because you have the tools and the knowledge to take care of this going forward if it does start to irritate you again. And because of this, you're going to be independent with this injury, meaning you're not going to have to rely or depend on clinics or YouTube videos or different things out there to just feel good for a couple of days. So when you're focused on increasing your resilience to this injury, your long-term outcomes drastically get way better because you're no longer afraid and you're no longer minimizing your life going forward. So for Chris, he wasn't wanting to stop here. Even though he felt close to 100%, he was not satisfied or okay with where he was because he wanted to be better than where he was when he first had this injury. So over the course of several more weeks, we worked on increasing his resilience. And at that point, it's been about 16 weeks since he first reached out to me. But he invested in a home gym. He bought equipment so he could exercise at home and strength train at home. And at that point, he was exercising and strength training 6 days a week without any issues. And he finally reached his goal of being able to take his son on a hike in one of those backpack carriers without his back getting sore or irritated the next day. There was one side effect that Chris wasn't too thrilled about, and that was he had to buy new clothes because his old clothes no longer fit him that well and they were too baggy. Because we were able to increase his overall activity levels and he was able to strength train 6 days a week, he started to get very lean and build up more muscle mass and lose a little bit of weight. But as a result from all of this, being able to exercise freely, losing weight, getting lean, and being able to play with his son without any restrictions, his confidence increased so much from where he was at week 6 and definitely compared to where he was when he first started with me. But I want to remind you where Chris started 16 weeks prior. He had pain shooting down his leg, he needed a cane to get around the house, and he was afraid of making this worse with any type of exercise. And so this process is not a quick, easy fix that you're gonna take care of in just a couple of days. This takes several weeks to months to fully get back to where you wanna be without this injury limiting you. So you might be asking at this point, when is the actual finish line? And I wanna share with you that there isn't really a finish line, and if I told you that it's going to only take you 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks to fully overcome this, I would be lying to you, and that's not what I want to do. I don't want to give you a false sense of reality that you only have to work hard for 10 weeks to fully overcome this problem, because that's just not true. To fully overcome these injuries, you have to maintain all of the habits that you've built along the way that have increased your resilience and improved your overall lifestyle. Because if you just stop one day and never do that stuff again, there's a really good chance that you're just gonna relapse back to where you were at the start of this. This might be a terrible analogy, but I had braces when I was younger, and the orthodontist told me that I have to wear my retainer every single day, otherwise my teeth are gonna shift back to where they were. Thinking back on it, it's been about 12 years since I've had my braces taken off, and my teeth are fairly straight to this day, but I wear my retainer every single day because if I don't maintain that, they're just gonna reverse back to where they were. And so with this, if you don't maintain this new lifestyle that you have, you're gonna revert back to that old person that you were when you first started. And maybe you've already have lived that experience with a herniated disc where you've tried chiropractic or PT in the past and you feel better for a couple of weeks, but then it flares up right back to where it was on day one. And there could be two possible reasons of why you keep having this problem come up over and over and over again. One of them could be that you know what to do, but you just don't keep doing it, which comes down to a problem of just needing to stay consistent. Or the other possibility is your previous plans have never built that bridge from getting out of pain back to doing what you want to do pain-free. Or maybe you've never dealt with a herniated disc and the pain that shoots down your leg, and this is the first time that you're going through this, but you don't know what to do going forward. Regardless, if this is your first time dealing with this, or you've dealt with this for several months now and you want to overcome this once and for all, I have a link below where you can schedule an assessment with me. In the assessment, I'll help you map out what you're supposed to be doing going forward so you don't keep dealing with this over and over and over again. But if you don't want to schedule an assessment with me, that's totally fine. I recorded a live masterclass where I walk you through exactly what to do to get out of pain and then what to do going forward so that you have the tools and education to do it on your own. If you want to do either of those, there's a link in the description below.